Now let's look at other things you can add to your classwork tab. In the last video, we went over assignments. So now we're going to go through 3 other types of content you can add to your classwork tab. The first piece of content I would like for us to do is material. I would like for you to think of material as a container. This container will have information, resources, links, attachments, files that you want to provide for your students that are supportive to whatever it is that you're using your classroom for. This is not a place where students will return something to you or mark it complete. This is just a container of materials or resources to support your classroom. You do need to give your material container a title. If you'd like to give it a description, you can also do that. You can see in this example, I'm making my material box include resources to support the novel. Some people like to do it by chapter, by unit. It doesn't matter how you choose to use it, but the thing to remember is material seems very singular, but if you think of it as a container, you'll be able to add lots of resources to this. So I'm going to add a few resources by going to Add and choosing from Google Drive, a link, a file I can upload, or YouTube, as well as if I wanted to create a resource, I could also use the same create tools that we've seen before. So now I'm going to go add some resources to my material container. So I've added some resources through the Add button to my materials container. Something you may want to consider is the material container is a great place to put study guide, vocabulary list, any sort of course outlines or agendas, any resources that you feel like your students would need access to help them. Again, this could be very generic or it could also be very topic specific. When you look over to the right, you'll notice that I can't really assign this to students. Once I post it to the classwork tab, it will be available, but there's nothing they're actually going to be responsible for. These are just actual resources. Again, I can choose to post immediately, schedule, or just save. The thing to keep in mind is once I've posted it, I can always come back and add or create more resources in this materials container. I'm going to go ahead and post it so that you'll see what this looks like. So it looks the same for students and teachers. It's basically got the title and any description you've left, and it's got the links to all the resources. So again, this is just a material resource. So that was created using Create and Material. So now let's move on to a different type of content that we can place on the classwork tab, the quiz assignment. This one should look very familiar because it's exactly identical to a regular assignment which we created in the last video, except this one comes with a blank quiz. We're not going to go through how to create Google Forms in this. That's covered in another course. But what we do want you to note is if you create a quiz assignment, it does create a blank quiz for you. And all you have to do is open that blank quiz, title it, add in your questions. It will be attached to the assignment. You also have the ability, if it's the only attachment to the assignment, to toggle on grade importing. And what that does is it automatically limits each form to one response, so your students can only respond one time. It collects their email addresses, so you'll be able to see who completed the form, and it requires them to log in to take it. And it restricts responses only to users in our domain. Now, I will point out over on the right, since our students use Chromebooks, you can choose locked mode on Chromebooks, and there's a little informational box here. Now, this tells you if I have locked mode on, they're going to have to be on a Chromebook to take the quiz for this to work, and they won't be able to open any other tabs or apps while taking the quiz. So that's a great feature if you do quizzes in Google Classroom, and you can toggle it on or off depending. So by grade importing, we'll look at a little more about this later, but that means that you'll have one button that you could press and it brings all the scores into your Google Classroom grading portion. So again, the only difference between this assignment this quiz assignment and a regular assignment is it does attach that quiz and gives you the options to lock the mode for Chromebooks or to import grades. Everything else is identical. I'm going to go ahead and discard this draft because we've already done an assignment before. So now let's look at our final type that we're going to go through in this video, and that's a question. Questions are very easy to add in Google Classroom. This is a great alternative if you have comments and posts turned off, because this will enable you to still get that dialogue going in your classroom without having them have the freedom to post all over your classroom. So this is a good alternative if you have chosen to turn off posting and commenting for students. This does also focus it on a particular question. So before I enter my question, I want you to note that there are two types of questions currently. There's a short answer question and a multiple choice. And I'm going to do one of each so you can see how these work. So the first thing you do is you enter your question into the top field. So let's do a short answer question. So I've entered my question into the top field and made sure it says short answer. Now the instructions are optional. You don't have to put any instructions, but if you needed to refer them to a particular thing or provide further clarification, that option is there as well. Also, you have the ability to add links and create documents just as you do in all the other assignment types in Google Classroom's classwork tab. This is also a great way that some people will put in a YouTube video that they watch and then they answer the question. So it's a great way to use questions in a diverse manner. So after you've entered your question, any instructions needed, and added any attachments, made sure it's on short answer, now we have to go over to the far right and have a little conversation. All of these elements we've seen before, so I'm going to skip down to the bottom. For these question types, you can allow students to reply to each other, which means they will see one another's responses and they'll be able to reply. In this particular question, this would be a great idea because it would prompt the students to have conversation about the things they like and don't like in the book, and they'll be able to see students who have similar or opposing views of them. So that is a great option there. Also, you can allow students to be able to edit their answers as well. So questions, again, it's a great way to provide students with the ability to have some interactivity in the classroom, and you can give some collaborative responses by allowing them to reply to each other. So you'll notice this doesn't say post, it says ask because it's a question. So you can either ask it, schedule it to be asked, or again, save it. I'm going to go ahead and ask my question, and now we'll notice that all of these little icons are helping me determine what type of question or post those are. So I know this is a resource, this is an assignment, and this is a question. So now let's go and let's make another question, and let's go to the multiple choice type. So I'm going to type in a question that evokes a multiple choice response. So I've typed in the question, which character is your favorite? Now when it comes to adding in the options, you'll notice it only gives you 2 to begin with, but I'll show you that as you type them, you'll get more. So I'll start typing my first character, and as soon as I go to my second one, it automatically adds an option. So keep adding all of your choice options. So here you'll see the options that I've provided, and you'll notice after I enter them, I have a place where I could delete them if I needed to, or I also can drag and drop responses to get them in a different order. And this is going to be a quick way I can get some information from my students. Also, in this one, I have different options over on the right. I can allow the students to see a class summary, or I can take that away and just have it be something for me. I'm going to allow my students to see a summary so they can kind of see which character is kind of going to the top as being a favorite in the class. Again, I have the same options to ask, schedule, or save. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that. And now what I'm going to do is take us into the student view. So in the student view, I do want to point out that the things I've submitted are now kind of grayed out. except for resources because that's not something that I have to do. So for your students, it's smart to tell them if your icons are grayed out, you've probably completed them. But then if you have not, those are going to be whatever color is the color of your class. So I'm going to go in and look at the open-ended question or the short answer question. So I can't see the entire question, and it has been assigned, so that's my status, but I'm going to view the question. So as a student, I can see the class comments because remember I have it so that they can see and comment to one another. But I'm going to enter my answer over to the right. So it tells me to type in my answer. So as a student, I can type in my answer and turn that in. So now I can click Turn In. As other students submit their responses, I can click on See Classmates' Answers, and that's where I can see everyone's answer and I can post comments if my teacher has allowed me to comment on other students. I'm going to go back to the classroom and go back to the classwork tab. You'll notice that since I've turned this in, it has kind of turned gray. So now I can go back to which character is my favorite, and you'll see that they get the list of their multiple choice. So if the person chooses their answer and turns it in, they'll be able to see the class summary because I left that on. So as other students enter their answers, they'll get an idea of which character is in the lead. Also, they can click on View Question to only see that. And I also can add private comments to this assignment here. Back in the teacher view, I can see how many have turned it in, and I see an overall summary as well. And if I want to see answers, I'm going to click on View Question, and I will see each of the students' responses, and I can reply privately to them if I wish. So these are the types of assignments that you can add in the Classwork tab. A regular assignment, which was gone over in the last video. Today we talked about adding a material, which is just a box of resources for your student, and you can create multiple boxes of resources depending on how you're using them. You can ask questions as well as post assignments that contain quizzes.